in the Premier Women's Double Scull. De Jong and Boonstra from the Netherlands. I think a pretty tough job here for the Kiwis to take it to the pedigree of the Dutch combination, but the Dutch crew just coming out into the centre. They're going to have to correct their steering, just pushed out there. They'll adjust themselves. No call from the umpire yet. No call yet, but I think that's also been benefited from the fact that the crew from New Zealand are very over onto their station, which is very nice. But as you expect, the Dutch crew have come out in the lead, but Lucy Glover is a racer. She likes to drive her boat up when she's been in the GB setup, and Catherine Glen in the bow seat from New Zealand is tried to qualify in the double last year and just missed out at Paris Olympic Games. But this Dutch double, De Jong and Boonstra, have got such pedigree. Boonstra won a gold in the women's Cox's 4 in an amazingly tight race with the Team GB Cox's 4. But what I love about the Dutch setup is they swap and change. They go from sculling to sweep and sweep to sculling, and that's very rare to happen in a setup like Team GB, where you're just in Great Britain. Once you are typecast as a sweeper or a sculler, that's you, and it's very hard to break into the different styles of rowing that we have. Yeah, an aggressive start here from the Kiwis. In the stroke seat, Lucy Glover. She's appeared at Henley 5 times before this. Behind her, Catherine Glen in the bow seat, 24 years of age. She's raced at Henley once before. And doing a good job at keeping in touch with this crew from the Netherlands, and that's what it's about, especially in this middle part. We just saw in that ladies play tape there. If you can keep in touch, especially in a smaller boat, it is much easier to have that bigger turn of speed, so you can generate a little bit of overspeed to be able to come back and make the impression more on an 8. But for this event, it's really important that the crew from Wairiki Rowing Club stay in touch with the crew from Netherlands as long as possible to be able to give themselves belief. And you just saw a clip of the waves as it does get a little bit bouncy. Saturday is really bouncy, especially as we get into the afternoon of racing. Yeah, what I love about how the Dutch row is that they're just so connected and loose through the front end. So they're putting the blade in, they're really direct. There's not a whole lot of body movement, nothing aggressive in the stroke, but they really hang off those handles and just let the boat work for them. So there's nothing that appears, you know, difficult or hard in what they're doing. And that's across all of their boats that you see, especially in the men's and the women's side. They just have this loose, languid style that you've expertly described there, Sarah. But it is interesting, the challenge that you have on this course of the water, it can be tricky. So that's where it's actually going to come into their favor a lot more. If they can be a lot looser, if they can be calmer as they do clip waves, if they do encounter some of the boat wash that you can see on this water now. Yeah, you can see they get a little, you know, the blade doesn't quite go in, or a steering correction there from the umpire. The umpire, I think it might be Sarah Winkler's, asking the Dutch to move back onto their station. The umpire sits in the middle of the course, and that's how they determine whether a crew is moving off their station. But look at the Kiwi combination. They're going to hit the booms there, or very close to, with their blades. That's as tight as you can get, and now both crews have gone so far apart from each other. But the crew from New Zealand they're still really close. So you maybe get intense, and there you go. They've got that correction. They're starting to drift back into the middle. But Sarah would have been warning them, because there's not much of a distance between the lead crew and the crew in second to be able to drift out in front. So that must mean from they're about a length behind. So it still gives fairness and opportunity for Wairiki Rowing Club to be able to row in clean water. So this is a really great race here from Wairiki Rowing Club, New Zealand. They're still very much in contact with the Dutch. We see a gust there come across the water. It is tricky conditions out there. The New Zealanders just struggling with their steering. They're really close to those booms again. You can see that sort of cross head kind of pushing them across towards the booms. I think it's pushing the Dutch towards the center of the course, which is why we've seen a lot of steering corrections here. But Bente Boonstra, she, as you said, Olympic champion in Paris last year. She's only 24 years of age. She was world champion the year before in the Cox's 4 and silver medalist the 2 years prior to that in the 4 and the 8. So incredible talent in sweep rowing and now in the sculling boat. Yeah, you described that crosswind and the challenge that you get so well, and the crew from New Zealand is still struggling. They've been unable to get out of the way for the booms. But this Dutch crew, like you said, they do look really relaxed. Roos de Jong in the bows has always been in a quad or a double, and she's always been in this. She's not a very big woman, she's a very slight woman, but she always seems to generate so much power, and that's through efficiency as well as like great technique and just raw power.
Gosh, really struggling with that cross head breeze here. New Zealand, or Waiariki Rowing Club New Zealand, finding themselves again close to the booms. It's such tough conditions out here. They really need to give it another pull, but you just get so exhausted doing these steering corrections all the time. It's so tough. But they're very close to the booms here. Hopefully they don't.
Oh, a small clip there. And again, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate when this happens, and it's not nice to see.
Oh, so tough, such disappointment for Waiariki Rowing Club. They've really, it is incredibly tough conditions out there, that crosshead, and as you're getting more and more exhausted, just getting pushed into the booms and having to correct over and over and over again. So a great effort here, but really tough conditions out there for that crew, as the wind through the centre of the course is really pretty punchy. But the Dutch, Roos de Jong, as you mentioned, she won bronze medal at the 2020 Olympic Games in the double scull with Lisa Sheanard, and has also won medals at World Championship level as well. But here we have that replay of the double scull from New Zealand. They've been fighting that breeze all the way down, but it's just getting the better of them as they get pushed into the booms at Remenham.
One of the challenges when you don't have a steering foot or a rudder is, especially in a sculling boat, and I'm no expert in this, but when you're having to lean on one side over another, it can obviously generate fatigue. So if you're already struggling to battle through that wind on your stroke side oars as they were, then it's becoming more and more fatigued. And this is a relatively new double. I know that Lucy Glover has stepped in as a sub to enable Catherine Glen to be able to race this week. That's why you can see she's wearing the blue of her home club.
And the Dutch, I mean, this is about as good as it gets on semi-final day, isn't it? No one ill wishes your competitors, but certainly takes the load off as they are able to relax coming down to the line. They'll be able to conserve some energy for their final tomorrow.
And they would have enjoyed having to do the first half to Forley as hard as they can, because then you can go back and look at the drawing board and say what worked well, what didn't, assess how they handled the wind, their own steering off the island. I had a really terrible Saturday when I steered very similar to that, and actually I started to encroach onto the South Africans, and then the next day it felt like I had something to work on, to improve. So I think that they'll enjoy the fact that they didn't have so much pressure in the second half due to that unfortunate clash on the booms, but they'll know that they're tougher races tomorrow.
And we can see a smile on the face there. Roos de Jong just looking like she's really taking that in, looking around, smile on her face. They know that they're going through to the final tomorrow. Taking in those few moments. It's not often that you get to row the last 100 metres and really take in the atmosphere and the crowd and everything around you. So well done to the Dutch crew of de Jong and Boonstra, who have taken out the semi-final in the Stonor Challenge Trophy. And coming across the line, heartbreak for Waiariki Rowing Club, Catherine Glen and Lucy Glover just hitting the booms at Remenham Station.